Before river or root, before star or storm, there was a breath held by no lungs, and a hush that was not emptiness. In that hush arose a tone, single and whole, sounding from the one whom the wise name Eru Ilúvatar. It carried neither wind nor word, but the promise of both, and as it moved across the shapeless dark it gathered company. For from Ilúvatar came the Ainur, mighty spirits of thought and will, and each awoke to the sound as a bird to dawn, trembling to find itself alive with music. They listened, and listening, learned. Chords unfurled like banners no eye had yet been given to see. Measures stepped like kings no foot had yet been taught to walk. Light, though not yet kindled, leaned forward out of its own sleeping idea. Some of the Ainur answered with harmonies, hesitant at first, then brimming with courage. Others studied in reverence, storing themes as a gardener stores seed, and Ilúvatar smiled, whose smile was the first warmth ever to be known. He began a great theme, flowing like a clear spring through a land that was only thought. To each spirit, the theme spoke in a different voice. To some, it was sea lilt and foam. To others, volcanic thunder muffled under earth. Some heard the sway of forests unrooted and the laughter of rivers uncarved. Some knew the dance of stars unborn and fire that would one day leap in the eyes of mortals at hearth and forge. The Ainur answered, and their answering was itself creation in rehearsal, each part strengthening the other, each difference woven into a wholeness too vast for their understanding. Yet among them was one whose longing ran ahead of the song. He was the mightiest of the Ainur in gifts of mind and power, and in his secret thought he named himself king of what he had not yet seen. He sought the flame imperishable, that unborrowed life, which dwelt with Ilúvatar alone, and he could not find it in any place but the theme. Envy came upon him, bright and cold as metal no hand had tempered. His notes swelled, proud and solitary, as if the river of harmony needed a single mouth to speak for it. The sound that followed was not silence, yet it felt like falling toward it. Discord entered a crack across a mirror. A winter in midsummer, iron poured into a mountain stream, and the cities of rhythm trembled. Some of the Ainur faltered. Others, grieved and fierce, set themselves against the rift. The brave among them took the harsh new tones and bent them back into the theme, like sailors steering a storm toward safe water. But the mightiest of the discord would not be soothed. It was a hunger taught to sing. Then Ilúvatar rose, and with a single look, gathered music the way the sea gathers rivers. He began a second theme, deeper and kinder than the first, its tenderness like the hush in the arms of a mother who has lost and still loves. The discord clashed with it and was, for a breath, triumphant, yet the mercy of the second theme turned blows into bells, and the wound made a place for praise. The proud one raged, and his rage became part of what it could not master. Ilúvatar rose a final time, and from him poured a theme older than the first and younger than the last, a glory at once mountain high and infant small. No violence could endure against it, no pride could swell loud enough to drown it. The discord fell back like a black wave that breaks and crawls, and Ilúvatar, looking into the hearts of his children, spoke a word they had never heard. "Behold the music you have made." The hush after his speaking was a cliff, and from its edge the Ainur stared into a vision of a world that was not yet and already lived. And in that vision, a shape kindled, a sphere where time would tread and light would learn to lift shadow with meaning. They saw mountains rise like the backs of sleeping lords, and seas curve like patient thought. They saw stars spill as if the dark itself were yielding treasure, and in the far future, in small places, they saw laughter. But what they also saw made even the bravest draw breath and hold it. For the discord had not died, it had been given a place, and the one who had sown it smiled. "What place?" whispered the heart that would one day be called Melkor, and his whisper was a knife he meant for the world. The vision opened like a book that writes itself as it is read. What had been only sound took on color and edge. Oceans unlashed from idea to movement, continents dreaming of their own shapes, cloud and fire in first quarrel and first kiss. And the Ainur understood not fully, for that was beyond them, but enough to love and fear what lay before them. The music was not merely prophecy, it was blueprint and blessing, destiny and danger bound by a will greater than the sum of its singers. Ilúvatar showed them the children who would come, the firstborn under starlight, and the aftercomers who would rule their morning by a rising sun. They saw halls of the deep where gems kept their own twilight, forests older than language, rivers that remembered and would teach remembering to those who drank of them. They saw cities lifted and burned, oaths sworn and shattered, mercy surprising even those who gave it. They heard crying in the night and songs in the dawn after, and always the themes, the first bright and balanced, the second merciful and mending, the third sovereign and small, wove through every scene as thread through tapestry. Melkor gazed and desired. Where fire ran, he would master it. Where earth stood, he would delve and dominate. Where air moved, he would fix it to banners of his own heraldry. Where water flowed, he would dam it, or drown with it, as pleased his will. Yet the flame imperishable was not in any of these. It remained with Ilúvatar, and Melkor's longing made a crown of thorns inside his thought. Some among the Ainur turned their love to parts of the vision. Ulmo's heart moved in swelling deeps and the secret talk of springs. Manwë listened for the high music of winds that would one day sing the snows upon Taniqatil. Aula dreamed of substances and shapes, of metal folded upon itself until it could bear beauty without breaking. Yavanna saw green wealth, the first leaf, composing itself out of darkness, and she blessed it. Others, great and fair, set their delight in starways and snowfields, in beasts half-imagined and the vales where they would feed, in songs unborn and the quiet after such songs. And Ilúvatar spoke again, with a voice like morning when the chill has not yet left the grass. Ea, let these things be. The vision thickened into the world that is. The Ainur who loved it most poured themselves outward like rivers answering rain, and entering Ea they took shape according to their labors. They became the Valar, and beneath them, in power, the Maiar, servants of the same love, messengers and makers and keepers of ways. They found the world young and raw, its bones still cracking into place, its seas too loud for green things, its heavens shifting like new sleep. Melkor also descended, but not to serve. He came cloaked in splendor like a storm at sunset, beautiful and terrible, promising fruit to fields he planned to salt. Wherever the Valar began to fashion, he unmade. Wherever they raised, he spoiled. Wherever they planted, he sowed frost. Mountains he heaved up crooked to spite their paths. Fires he kindled where they cooled. Ice he breathed into the green thought before it could leaf. Long was their labor, and longer for his interference, and very many things firstborn were first broken. Yet even this did not lie outside the music. The wounds became places where mercy could dwell. The valleys torn by rage grew into rivers where future kings would kneel to drink and learn humility. The peaks thrust jagged by malice became beacons for the lost. And when the Valar were wearied, a laughter came running over the curve of the world. Golden and great-hearted Tulkas the Strong, whose mirth was a sword Melkor could not grasp. For a while, the enemy withdrew into the dark between stars, brooding and bitter, and the Valar fashioned the lamps to brace the first day and the first evening. Light stood, the world breathed, and in that breath a rumor awakened, like a forgotten chord reminding itself of its own name. The firstborn were near waking. The lamps burned upon their colossal pillars, one in the north, one in the south, and the blue of evening became gentler where their glows met like friendly tides. Under that mingled light, Yavanna's thought walked into leaf and fern. Beasts shook dew from newborn hides. The first birds wrote narrow runes across the brightening air. Ulmo, deep and solitary, taught the seas to speak in many voices, now harping on bright shores, now murmuring secrets in caverns where only fish had ears to hear. Ola forged the underworld's grammar, teaching stone to hold, to bear, to ring true when struck by just hands. Vana laughed and flowers answered. Nienna watched and wept and turned her tears to wisdom. But Melkor remembered the music and the places where his discord had held brief dominion. In caverns he had hollowed beneath the world's young bones, he gathered fire that would listen to no master save pain. He lured spirits to his service, promising height without depth, speed without patience, victory without love. Those who yielded were unshaped and remade, their bright names bent like metal heated too greedily. Envy became a banner, obedience, a chain. From those forges crawled the first ruins of beauty. He struck while the Valar were building joy. The pillars fell, the lamps cracked like thunder, frozen into glass, then shattered back into storm. Seas rushed where meadows had begun to hum with bees, mountains sank in sudden weariness. The lights fled upward and were lost, and night, having heard its own long name at last, stretched to meet itself. In that overturning, the Valar remade their strength in sorrow. They withdrew to the west and founded Valinor, where they raised mountains white as unfallen promises and set their halls in peace. Yet the work was not done, for in the east, under unpitying stars, the first eyes opened. They woke to darkness, but not to despair. The elves heard the echo of the music in starlight and called the stars their first friends. In the hush of lakes no lamp now warmed, they found their faces and named the world in soft syllables that fit the mouth like bread. They made songs whose beginnings they could not remember, and in dreaming they knew they were expected. Some saw shapes in the far west like pale crowns, and felt a longing like a wind that blows from a land whose air you have never breathed. Ulmo alone walked unceasingly in Middle-earth, and he put courage in the waters near Cuiviénen. Rumor of the children reached Valinor, and joy with it, and foreboding, for where new life turns to the first light, shadow also comes to learn its hunger. Melkor learned of the firstborn. He sent hunters and hounds fashioned of ancient noise. He taught nets to hate their own cords, and taught fear to walk on 2 feet, silent as regret. Elves vanished near the lake where they sang, and those who sought them found only garments with their own names stitched into the hems, floating like white leaves. The Valar debated. Some, moved by pity, urged swift war. Others counseled patience and the guardianship of the world in the form the music had already woven. And still the vanishings multiplied. And so the tale passes from one telling to another, as all great stories of Middle-earth must. But this thread winds deeper still. At last the Valar made war and took Melkor captive, and for a time the firstborn walked unshadowed. They were summoned west, and many went, though some stayed out of love for the first places they had known. In Valinor they beheld the 2 trees, whose mingled lights mended memory. And in that holy land the bright ones grew brighter, and those who had stayed in Middle-earth grew wise in other ways, but the discord had not forgotten its path. For Melkor learned patience. He listened for the part of the music that the proud can always hear their own reflection in it, and returned, crowned with false humility, to smile at those who could be taught to mistake knowledge for kinship. What he desired was not merely thrones or iron. He desired to strike Ilúvatar in the only place where the One had made himself vulnerable. He desired to erase hope from the children. There are many battles that books remember, and others that memory keeps for itself. The War of the Music was neither, and both. In Valinor, the light of the trees rose and fell like breath, silver inhalation, golden exhalation, and under their changing radiance the elves made crafts that would make later kings weep. Aule, in his love for shaping, made the 7 fathers of the dwarves in secret and repented in open humility when Ilúvatar revealed that only the children of his own begetting could awaken then. Yet even that misstep was folded into mercy. The dwarves were adopted into the story, stubborn and steadfast, friends and foes as need and nature contended. The music held them all. But Melkor departed from Valinor with a spider brood of dark intent. He had learned the void between notes and how to live there, knitting schemes like the black lace of a web that believes itself a crown. He found an ally from the deeps of an older darkness, and with her he wove a silence that could swallow music, a hunger with a body. When the trees stood in fullest mingling, that hunger moved. The light went out as if a great hand had closed the eyes of the world. The shock was not only loss, it was revelation. For in the dark that followed, the music moved through sorrow as a river through secret caverns. Yavanna wept, and her tears were seeds. Nienna wept, and her tears were teaching. And of their grief came a fruit and a flower, saved beyond hope, guarded as if they were children lost and reclaimed. From those last treasures were made the sun and moon, lights gentler than the trees, yet fierce in their appointed purpose, to carry time into lands where starlight had taught pride and humility both. In Middle-earth, the elves who had remained learned that dawn could be exile's balm and a warning to the wicked. Men, the aftercomers, stirred in their sleeping places. They woke to a world already at war with itself, and found in their hearts the strange mingling of shadow and longing that the music had foreknown. Gifts were given them that would look like sorrow to the immortal: swift years, quick fire, deep forgetfulness, and a hope that leans beyond the circles of the world. In their brief songs, something burned that even the Eldar could not catch. Ilúvatar's smile, which the Ainur had feared to see after the first discord, remained, for he had woven the proud notes into a deeper harmony than pride could map. In the end, Melkor's greatest boast became a confession that he had never mastered a single theme, but only borrowed it to prove its strength. Where he crushed, memory grew stubborn. Where he scattered, stories gathered themselves. Where he ruled, mercy learned strategy. The shadow enacted the music's law without knowing it, and every wound it dealt became a door through which courage entered. Yet this is no cheap victory. The music does not erase grief. It gives grief a country. Those who walk in Middle-earth will know loss as they know breath, and their songs will lean against it as a sailor leans into wind. But because Ilúvatar sang, and because the Ainur answered, and because even the discord was not hidden from the purpose of that singing, the end is not emptiness. It is a cadence no ear has heard, though all hearts guess at it. So the world rolled on, lights changing their watch, seas wearing their shores thinner and truer, mountains aging into ancestry. The Valar kept their charge from the west, the children walked their dooms and graces, and in places where no map would bother to ink a name, kindness kindled hearths that no chronicle records. Melkor would return to make his last plays, and others after him would inherit his envy like a debt they wanted but could not pay. Yet the song still moved, invisible and victorious in patience. Listen, in the hush before winter breaks, there is a low note holding the world together. What began as sound becomes story, and what is story becomes remembrance. In every cradle song taught by a mother to her small, the music breathes. In every oath, whether broken or kept, it stands witness. In every tombside whisper and wedding shout, it binds or releases as the heart requires. The Ainur who entered the world still labor, and those who remained with Ilúvatar still praise. The sea keeps Ulmo's counsel, the wind on high still asks after Manwë. In vaults of stone the dwarves hammer patience into beauty. In evergreen shadows Yavanna hides seeds against a spring not yet born. The elves sing of starlight's first tenderness and of sorrow's discipline. Men rise and fall, and rise again with names no song can hold long, yet the music knows them and keeps their meaning beyond measure. Sometimes, when a shepherd pauses and feels watched by nothing he can name, when a queen lays aside a crown to lift a child, when a smith cools a blade and weeps for reasons he does not understand, the first theme shows itself as a memory older than the world. Sometimes, when forgiveness blooms in a field salted by betrayal, the second theme speaks in a language pain can hear. And sometimes, when a small hand takes another small hand, and both walk forward where the brave have already fallen, the third theme ripples the air with the promise that nothing given in love is lost, not even to death. It is said among the wise that at the end, Ilúvatar will begin a new music, greater for the first. The Ainur will sing, and the children will sing with them, not as echoes but as voices, making from all their griefs and glories a sound that cannot be imagined, only desired. Melkor's chord will be there too, but not as master. It will be answered and answered until it turns into what it was meant to be from the beginning, a place for compassion to prove its power. And the silence that once leaned close to listen will rest, satisfied, because there will be nothing outside the song to strain to hear it. Until that final singing, the world goes forward under sun and moon, and the stars keep their vigil as they did before the lamps and before the trees. Tell your children that their laughter is a map, Teach your enemies that mercy is the only victory which leaves both victor and vanquished more than they were. Keep the small faiths, a loaf shared, a gate mended, a name remembered. These are the quiet measures by which the great theme moves in daily time. These are the notes no tyrant can silence. And when you stand some night where the hills open their backs to the sky and the wind smells of stone and grass, listen. You may hear not a tune, but the space where the tune will carry you. You may feel not an answer, but a hand on your shoulder whose warmth you have always known. That is Ilúvatar's kindness, walking unarmed into the places where fear has made its camp, humming a lay older than the fire. Another tale awaits, the two lamps and the first shadow. The story continues.